What do you expect when you open a comic book? Caped wonders, endlessly fighting convoluted plans conjured up by sinister fiends? On one end of the spectrum, that is absolutely the case, but on the other end are stories which sometimes hold no real conflicts. Stories where the hero exists in a world that isn't super. Now imagine this individual exists and is a world-famous celebrity, but also the most lonely and isolated being on the planet. So after making that video about Animal Man, it left me stuck in a hole, thinking about my past, my life, things I've been through. But first and foremost, it made me feel sad. By no metric am I a perfect person. I don't even believe that's possible. Despite knowing some individuals who come across as if they've never done any wrong to a single person, there have been times I've been in bad situations, and there have been other times where I was the one causing the situation. It just comes down to the scenario. I wanted to talk to you about two comic books today that I believe show polar opposite examples of the human condition. Concrete by Paul Chadwick and Monsters by Barry Windsor-Smith. Neither of them are superhero stories per se, even if they may come across as such. There are some supernatural elements, but that's not the core of what makes these stories special. Both focus on what makes people human, the good and the bad, and the sad and the ugly, and I'd like to get into them. Let's start off with the semi-optimistic part. Concrete. Get a look at this thing. No, he isn't the thing, even though he may look just like him. This is Ron Lithgow, more commonly known as Concrete. To sum up his super origin quickly, basically Ron and his buddy were abducted by aliens along with several other people. Their brains were transferred from their human bodies into these giant bodies with a texture and appearance similar to, well, concrete, hence the name. This body is capable of superhuman feats, is incredibly resilient to rough conditions, can see in the dark, weighs over a ton, but is devoid of most of the five senses, and is seen as a monster by damn near everyone who doesn't know him personally. Ron's a cool guy though, and he finds this as a blessing of sorts. He's able to do things that none of us could. Swim across the Atlantic Ocean? Why not? Climb Mount Everest? Sure. Ah, fuck, but he does need a lot of help because he gets stuck in a bunch of holes a lot. Brother doesn't need to breathe, eat, or get tired, but at his core, he's still as human as you or I. He's trying to feel something, to use these gifts he's been given. In each issue, he's basically trying to accomplish some crazy feat because he has this sense of obligation that he needs to, when really he doesn't. I suppose you could compare that to the sense of wanting to share or help others in need, humans wanting to see other humans succeed. The guy who recommended me Concrete said that Concrete is whatever the fuck Paul Chadwick wants it to be. And that's absolutely true. At the beginning of each issue, Chadwick inserts a long letter talking about his inspiration for the stories. Climbing Mount Everest wasn't entirely fiction. Chadwick himself took up the task, and through Concrete, he was able to tell the tale through the lens of a comic, laughs and all. That's one of the most surprising traits that you probably wouldn't expect. Concrete, issue to issue, delivers genuinely funny situations that accompany the mundane task he takes on. Despite not strictly being a comedic book, it covers all points of the emotional spectrum, just like our normal lives do. I tend to view it as a slice of life book. Out of Ron's experiences, issue 6 displays a good example of his empathy, his feelings, and a choice he makes that directly affects a complex situation, when he could have just taken the easy or righteous route and been done with the whole thing. Top-notch celebrity Concrete receives a letter from a family who owns a farm that isn't doing so well. They're asking for help from Ron, to which he accepts. During his tenure as a farmhand, he genuinely rejuvenates the farm, but also notices that something mysterious is going on. As it turns out, the family harbored a secret.
I'm gay.
Their abusive father, who they insisted ran away, was actually dead, killed by his son. Not randomly, he was beating down on one of them, and in the heat of the moment, the son shot the dad in the face. He laments the fact that he didn't shoot him in the leg. The family didn't report it to the cops, instead buried the evidence in the swamp next to the farm, which Concrete dug up. They continued the farm as they believed that's what their father would have wanted, to continue the family business. Having spent time with the entire family, Concrete decides not to report them to the police, even helping them cover it up more. He sympathizes with their financial struggle with upkeeping the farm and dealing with an abusive parent. From his viewpoint, no good would have come from the son going to jail. The farm would be lost and the family would be stuck with nothing. Even though he's an accessory to murder, he's an accessory to murder with a heart. Could you get away with that? What would your mother say? Well, in issue 10 of Concrete, we get to meet Ron's mother, and that was just a segue.
Ooh, you suck!
I'm going off topic here. So, issue 10, Ron gets notified that his mother is dying, and up until this point, the world, his mother included, has thought that Ron's been dead. He feels the urge to speak to her before she leaves, but convincing a woman that a cyborg is your dead son is difficult. So he writes a letter proving to her that it's him, and to me, it's incredibly humanizing, telling secrets that only a son and mother would know together. And in the end, it does the job and convinces her. Her son is the famous cyborg known as Concrete. This leads into more Concrete shenanigans. He hides under a tarp to go visit her, and after barely making it through the doorframe, he comes to tears. But his body's version of tears is basically vomiting acid. The rest of the conversation is him telling her about his adventures, but a difficult topic comes to the surface. Ron's father took his own life, and for Ron's whole life, his mother has hid this fact, wanting to protect him. But Ron somehow knew. His father had taken his life in order for the insurance company to pay out for his death, which enabled Ron to go through school and lead his successful life. This final revelation between mother and son is so touching and was genuinely difficult to read. I so wish I could have exchanged words with him before he left, but my reality doesn't line up with Concrete's. Their meeting is cut short by the cops coming in to investigate, since Concrete's mere presence can be the epicenter of strange occurrences, like he had to cover his feet in rags because the floor is too weak to support his massive body. Back on the emotional side, after his mother passes, he attends the funeral through his assistant, who wears a live microphone feed. Despite not being present physically, Ron being able to hear the eulogy allows him to be at peace, we can assume. And the words spoken are not only for him, but, well, for us. I cried reading this issue. So let's lighten up the mood a bit, I guess. On the physical front, Ron can and does do things we just can't, but there are aspects of his previous life as a normal person that he just can't experience anymore. He doesn't have a dick, and unlike the Fantastic Four's beloved Yancey Street orphan Ben, the Thing, nobody is falling in love with Concrete, even if Concrete is really Ron. This doesn't mean he doesn't have the feeling or the desire for intimacy. He surrounds himself with erotic art, which is a particular trait that stands out for a man who can have sex. He says he doesn't have the desire for it, but his actions with collecting the art go against that completely. We do see him throughout the course of the series harbor complex emotions for his assistant, Maureen, even showing jealousy and anger as she dates other men. Most notably, this fucker named Lars. His internal sexual frustrations are projected outwards of his body as literal horns. Concrete gets horny. It's played for laughs and isn't brought up again, yet when you actually think about it for more than a minute, it's kind of heartbreaking. His body technically has no limits, but in other ways it's incredibly limited. Concrete focuses on the physical limitations that we have, and despite his gifts or handicaps, he's making the best out of a bad situation. Just as the eulogy at his mother's funeral says, "There will always be barriers between me and what normal people can do." But every adult must eventually face the limitations of his life. We don't get to do and have everything. We play the cards we're dealt. Those words sum up the idea of Concrete as a character entirely, and can be applied to our own lives as well. We all have limits, but in Ron's very specific case, it's just physical. He's just a guy in the body of a monster! On the other end of the spectrum, Monsters by Barry Windsor-Smith shows that the real monsters among us aren't Frankensteins or Draculas, but ordinary people who are often pushed to the absolute limits of their minds, some voluntarily, but unfortunately, a lot of them involuntarily. We all have the capability to do evil, whether it be committing infidelity or beating our son half to death while screaming in German and murdering our extended family on Thanksgiving Day. If the turkey meat is dry, I'm shooting up the dinner table. Most humans have a moral compass which guides them to making the correct choices in life that don't negatively affect or hurt others. Monsters explores the interconnected story told in intermittent segments of different people, but they're all connected and centered around a poor boy, Bobby Bailey, a son of a soldier who served as a German interpreter during World War II. The sights his father saw during his service. Nazis themselves are monsters, and their vile experiments attempting to create monsters, which he witnessed firsthand, left him changed. And even after returning home, he never actually returned home. He was still at war. According to www.ptsd.va.gov, as of 2024, about 14% of men and 24% of women who have served have PTSD. Imagine those numbers but back around the World War II era, where mental health wasn't taken as seriously as it is now. Bobby's father was a victim of war. Even though he returned alive, his trauma, accompanying his paranoia about his wife having affairs with every man in town while he was away, weren't quelled when he got back. Instead, he proceeded to take out his emotions on his family. He became a monster! His spiraling ended with him shooting his wife, her brother, and his wife to death. Bobby only being spared as the police officer was there in time to shoot Bobby's father first, saving the boy. I don't think it's unfair to say that a young kid seeing this would absolutely fuck him up for life. And it did. Bobby Bailey grew up with no family or anyone really. He tried joining the army to find a place, but instead they used him as the subject to secretly continue the Nazi experiments discovered by the US government. The exact same experiments that were part of igniting Bobby's father into going Monster shows a scale. The minor acts we hardly think of as evil or bad, and the repercussions that come with it, along with those who are genuinely evil, masquerading as people making hard choices, such as the Nazi scientist character who murders his peers and some US soldiers after calling them racial slurs, then demanding immunity and sanctuary in America in exchange for those precious Nazi secrets. Come on, you expect the government to not froth at the mouth over Nazi secrets? The government. Monster! These scientific necessary evils are sadly not even fictitious. Plenty of the German tests to create a perfect super soldier were nothing more than torture disguised as progress. These scientists didn't appear as monsters. They looked normal, but inside they were as rotten as could be. Back to Bobby, his exterior, post-experiments, was riddled with tumors, and his size seems to have quadrupled. The boy is now huge, and he looks absolutely fucked up. He can't even speak, only grunt. Bobby is now a monster! A monster, in appearance only. He's being emotionally stunted since he watched his own family die, and when he gets the chance to run away from the government, he heads to the one place he felt safe at one point in his life, his home. Other forces like a military general chase him, trying to kill him to destroy evidence of the illegal and inhumane government experiments. The general being another devil walking around as a man. He's a monster! That joke is getting old. Luckily, the general does get his comeuppance as he falls down and dies from the cold. Bobby's story does end on a high note. He passes peacefully as he gets to see his mother before he passes away. We see them sitting back at the dinner table in his childhood home, his father not in sight. Instead sits the cop who killed his dad. Throughout his childhood, that officer kept an eye out for and tried to protect Bobby when he could. Seeing as how Bobby never really emotionally grew past that point of trauma, it makes sense him imagining the officer there. Throughout his entire life, he was judged by others by the way he looked. Before the experiments, he had to wear an eye patch due to his father beating him so bad he lost his eye. The glances and stares from others is nothing compared to what was thought of him after his transformation. But through his actions until the end, Bobby was a gentle soul. He tried saving a helicopter pilot who had just tried to shoot him, but managed to crash his helicopter instead. Idiot alert. The world judged based on looks and wanted him dead and gone for it. Again, others did this to him. For his whole life, Bobby has been a victim of other people's actions. Ron and Bobby share a few similarities. Both were unwillingly transformed into giant things. However, one was seemingly blessed and the other cursed. Ron gained everything: strength, endurance, not intellect, but a body that could outlast time itself, as far as we know. The earth could explode and there would still be concrete drifting through space. Not really, but I mean his body is incredibly resilient, and when it isn't, they can just slather him in actual concrete. On the other hand, he lost the sensations that make life worth living. So he's the driver and the passenger in his body at the same time. Yes, he's in control, but he's just along for the ride when it comes down to bodily senses. Luckily, he can accept this and is at peace with what he can and cannot do. Bobby lost, well, everything. his mother, his freedom, his own body. Yet he managed to keep his sense of home, essentially his soul in physical form. That sliver of humanity was all he was able to keep. It's hardly anything, but it's the only thing we can point to, aside from his actions, that show his human spirit, his drive to keep going and, well, go home. They're mirrors of each other, one searching for purpose in a body that can't feel, the other lost in an ocean of feelings, having been given a purpose that ruined him, setting him on a search for peace in a cruel, cruel world. Both trapped inside shells they never asked for, unable to even recognize themselves, and the lack of others providing the feelings of being seen, understood, or even loved. So, if I had to guess, that's the through line between Concrete and Monsters. Being human isn't about flesh or feeling, but about our experiences and resilience to keep going or finding a sense of home. And perhaps that's why I felt sad after Animal Man. Not because the story was depressing, but because it reminded me of how fragile and gutting it is being human sometimes. Concrete and Monsters just took that idea and stretched it across the size of continents. Two absolute extremes. The human instinct of pushing on through, hope, and the others of horror, unleashed by human greed and lust for power. Both stories end the same, with someone who just wants to feel normal again. And for us, who experience emotions, feelings, and thoughts of not fitting in, or being enough, maybe that's the closest thing to a superpower any of us will ever get. Thanks to Daily Concrete Post for putting me on concrete. It was very much worth it.